everybody, and welcome to a conversation with Dan from a Happy Moment podcast. Hey, Dan, how's it going?
Good, Bob. How are you doing today?
I'm pretty good. Today's been kind of a day, I'll tell you. I'll be honest with you. I was busy all day long, and then now this is my relaxing time. So hopefully it'll be happy for both of us going through all this. What do you think?
Every time I've talked to you so far, it's been a happy moment.
Oh, good. All right. So, Dan does a show called Happy Moment. And how long have you been doing that now, Dan?
Roughly 2 years. I took a small break in between there, but going on about 2 years now, and I've got about close to 100 episodes.
Oh, wow. Okay. And what was kind of the antithesis? Like, were you just sitting around one day and you're just like, you know what would be good for me to do? Have a show? Or how did it come about?
I just wanted to try it as kind of a challenge to myself. I've always been kind of a quiet person. I was in high school. I was voted the quietest, and
Really? They have that as a
yeah,
category? Okay.
yeah, it was.
I didn't know that. Okay.
At least at my school.
So you kind of used it as a way to do something a little bit different that was a little bit out of your normal regular day or whatever, regular routine.
Yeah, just kind of and also just kind of like a creative outlet.
Oh, okay. So how's it? I mean, whenever you started doing it, like I think you told me you concentrate mostly on movies, wrestling,
Yeah.
and pop culture, or was one of those maybe I made up? I can't remember now.
No, I do a lot of movies, books, gaming, wrestling. Those are probably the main ones.
Oh, okay. Well, there's my pop culture, movies, books,
And
gaming. That's all
you're
pop
on the right
culture.
track. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we could crunch that into pop culture. Uh,
Yeah.
so well, that's interesting. So then you decided you're going to do this in order to do kind of, I guess, break out of your shell a little bit from being the most quiet guy. Has it worked?
Yeah. Um, I'd say there's been varying degrees of success. Uh, first, the first thing I wanted to accomplish was just to see if I could even pull it off. And as I just mentioned, I've got close to 100 episodes, so
Hmm.
I'd say I'm definitely pulling it off. Um, and yeah, I would say overall it's helped me a little bit. I'm kind of introverted by nature, but this helps kind of get me out there a little bit more, and it's good practice talking to a variety of people. So um, I'd say it's working. Yeah.
Oh, good. Well, I just was wondering because that's what you said was the kind of the push for it. So you know you kind of want it to work. Otherwise, it's like, well, what am I doing this for? But I will tell you, as a personal aside here, you probably won't believe it, but I am a fairly introverted person as well, and doing these kind of things has helped tremendously. And in fact, I'm trying to think when it was now. It's had to be about 10 more. It's been more than 10 years ago. Anyway, so, but anyway, it has helped me with doing public speaking. So I don't have to do it like with any regularity or anything like that. But because of doing shows, podcasts for a long time, I have been called at times to be up in front of an audience and an audience of hundreds of people. And they say, if you read anything about that, they're like, that's one of the worst fears. And by doing this, I've been able to, pull that off and, more than once. And it went pretty well, I would say, overall. So, maybe there's something to it. I think maybe you're on the right track, basically, is what I'm getting at with
Yeah.
doing this in order to kind of, develop that skill, because it is a skill. I don't think people, nowadays it's hard. It's a little bit harder because so many people do this kind of thing. But once you do it for a while, it really is a skill in order to kind of talk off the top of your head on topic. So, kudos to you for giving it a shot and making a go of it and accomplishing it. So yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, thank you. The one thing when I do an interview with someone, um, a lot of the times I feel like it comes pretty naturally.
Mm-hmm.
But the one area I still struggle with is when most of my episodes are interviews, but I also do a few shorter solo episodes,
Mm-hmm.
usually like a horror review or a game review. And when I do a solo episode, I I cannot just start talking about a topic off the top of my head. I have to script everything out to the word, or else I'm gonna
Really?
be stumbling. Yeah, or else when I
Oh
record,
wow.
I'm gonna be stumbling and stuttering, and it'll take me like an hour to record a 10-minute video. So everything has to be scripted out when I'm by myself.
That's interesting. Well, I'm going to give you another hint for that. So, a friend of mine. His name's Frank Nora, and he's a longtime podcaster out of New Jersey, and he does a thing called the Overnightscape. If anybody wants to take a listen to it, and he does monologues. That's all he does. He only talks. He doesn't do interviews or anything really, and he only does monologues, and he generally does them while he's walking around New York City because he works in New York City. And it's fascinating, and I've done that. Actually, I did a show on his network for a while called Morning Commute, where I would talk on my this is pre-COVID, when I talk on my morning commute into work. Where I used to drive into work for about 35, 40 minutes, and I did a show for a few years just doing that. It is so difficult to do that, to talk on your own without having somebody as a sounding board and so forth. But if you can do it, if you can you kind of, force yourself into it, it really is, it's a whole other skill to be able to just launch into things and so forth. And so, I mean, keep working at it. I think you'll get there is
Yeah,
what I'm
thank you.
getting. I think you'll get there but if you listen to Frank, it's so natural for him. There was, his show is based off of a show that was actually in the 60s and 70s. He's the, I'm blanking on his name here. Gene Shepard is the name. He was a radio DJ in New York City, who he ended up writing the Christmas Story movie. That's his real claim to fame. But before he did any of that, he was a radio host, and he would make up these stories on air. And one of those stories was about the Red Ryder BB gun. And he ended up fleshing that out into a book. And then it became a movie. And that's really what he's famous for. But it's based on Gene Shepard's monologues. And his monologues were just telling stories about his childhood and things like that. And so, it really is fascinating. That style is a whole style unto itself, and I don't think there's a lot of folks who do that like regularly. But it's a whole other genre, I would say. So I would for yourself and whoever else wants to, go listen to the Overnightscape and listen to Frank. He's a real nice guy, and he generally has lots of interesting things to say. Some of them are like thought experiments, and he'll just kind of launch into a monologue about what he's thinking about, and it really is fascinating to listen to. Originally, I started listening because I enjoyed hearing the sounds of New York City in the background, which is kind of weird. I mean, I was listening to him, but it was fascinating to hear that he's walking down like he's in Times Square, and you can hear Times Square in the background while he's talking, and he'll pause and so forth. And it was, to me, it was just kind of one of those wild experiences, because you don't get to go to Times Square every day, but he does. It did, at least. So So the monologues are a little tough for you, but the interviews seem to be
Yeah.
going pretty good, huh? Sorry, I went
Oh
off on
yeah.
a whole tangent there.
Oh no, you're fine.
I went off on my own monologue there. Uh, but I don't know. Give it a try. I mean, that's all you can do, right? Is
Right.
see what it's like. So would you want to? Are you thinking that you want to go in that direction more, or would you rather have the interaction?
Uh, I I probably lean towards sticking with mostly interviews.
Yeah. So
You
who
know,
if you had to pick an interview uh, that you had over your episodes, like that was the most interesting, can you name that one or
um,
without making anybody else feel bad like myself? It doesn't
um,
have to be me. I'm just joking.
that's tough. That's you. 'Cause, I mean, I've had so many great guests on the show. Um, I mean, well, oh man.
What's the first one that comes to your head? Just blurt it out.
So I did an interview a few months ago with a fellow content creator,
Hmm.
and we were talking all about horror movies, and we did a look at our favorite horror movies throughout the decades.
Hmm.
Uh, and I had a lot of fun doing that. Um, I mean, I always enjoy talking horror movies, but I mean, we went through like a whole list of them, and that was just a great time. I learned a lot about new horror movies I hadn't heard of before. Uh, so yeah, I put that at the that's definitely up there.
What was their show or what was their name?
Her name is Turbo Skeletron. That's
Good
the
name.
handles that she uses most places.
Yeah, that's a
uh,
good name.
yeah, she has a couple different YouTube channels. There's Discount Horror Store.
Hmm.
Um, that's one of them. And then Bard of Kryn is another one. That's more of a fantasy book related one. But the Discount Horror is a horror channel that she does.
Oh, cool. So did you? So when you talked about the decades, like how far back are you going? You think?
So for my list, I really couldn't go back any earlier than the 1920s, but she
Oh
was
my, that's
able
pretty
to.
far back.
Well, you'd think so, but then she was able to touch on stuff going all the way back to the 1800s. So,
Oh wow.
um, yeah, and I
I
have to
don't
correct
know.
myself because I think I called her the Discount Horror Store, but it's Discount Horror Show. So,
Oh, okay,
Turbo,
that's
I
all right.
apologize for that if you listen to this.
That's fine.
Yeah, but
So
um,
what was the oldest one? What was the name of it? I'm trying to think. Phantom of the Opera, perhaps.
uh, that was, I mean, the oldest one that I could think of, I think, was either Phantom of the Opera or maybe Nosferatu.
Oh right,
Um,
yeah. Oh, that's big right now too. So
yeah, yeah, that remake that just came out.
yeah.
Um, I just off the top of my head, I can't remember the older ones that she was talking about. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, it was a lot of interesting things. And from the 1800s, a lot of those were just not full length movies, but more like like
Right.
4 or 5 minute shorts.
Yeah,
Um,
I think there was a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde that was in that era pre 1900. Nosferatu, the F.W. Murnau version is 1921, I think. I'm not even looking this up. It's all out of my head, Dan. Thank you. Um, the new one obviously is this year, but it rekindled. I don't know if you've noticed on all of the, like if you have a Fire Stick or a one of those kind of things, you'll see they'll pop up the old version because of the new one, right? So it's on all the recommendations now to watch the
okay,
old one. Yeah, Roku's got that and Fire and I guess Samsung TV has recommendations, and they put it up there because it's the same name, right? So people are searching Nosferatu.
Did you
So
watch it?
I've seen the 20s version a long time ago now, but I haven't watched the new one yet. I probably will end up watching it. Have you seen it?
No, but I've heard a lot of good things about it.
Yeah. Well, it's got I guess he's kind of like the new horror guy, Bill Skarsgård, right?
Okay.
Because he played the clown in It, the new versions. So yeah, he's kind of like the new horror, actor or whatever you want to say.
Right.
But Tim Curry played the other version of It, the clown. I can't. Does the clown have a name? I can't even remember.
Pennywise.
Pennywise. That's it. He played the old version of Pennywise, and so now he's kind of taken over that. But Tim Curry did a lot of horror and what I'll call glam horror, if you count the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Would you classify that as horror, the Rocky Horror Picture Show?
Um, Not really. I
Oh,
mean, well, maybe you could call it
dissension.
maybe a horror comedy, I guess you could call it.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, it's not really too scary, but it does have elements, right? So it's got all the elements of an old horror movie in it, with the castle and
It does. Yeah.
and all that kind of stuff. But you're right; it's obviously much more tongue in cheek. So if now I watched a movie recently. I don't know, would this be considered a horror movie or not? I'm not. So genre wise, I would say horror is not my kind of first go to genre wise. But I
Sure.
watched a movie called Heretic recently. Have you seen this?
I'm not familiar with it.
Okay, it's got it's real. It's a A24 movie, which apparently that means something nowadays. I'm finding out when I'm reading here is that people really like A24 movies, and it's got I'm a blank on his name now. Just talk amongst yourselves while I think for a moment. Hugh Grant. Hugh Grant is
Okay.
essentially the star, and it has a couple of younger actors in it as well. But it's really just got mostly three people in the whole movie, and it is possibly the creepiest movie I think I've watched in a long time.
No.
It totally gives you the willies, when you're watching it and afterwards. It's not an overly gross movie. It's not, like jump scares, but the creep factor is off the charts. If you want to get totally creeped out, you can watch Heretic, and you will be, I think.
I like creepy. Creepy is good.
Yeah, very creepy. So what's one that you've seen recently that you've liked a lot as far as a horror movie goes?
I haven't watched a whole lot of newer horror movies. Uh, Mostly just because I haven't had a whole lot of time for them.
Mm-hmm.
There was one that I watched, came out I think just like maybe 3 or 4 years ago, called The Dead Don't Die. Uh, and that was kind of a horror comedy. It was starring um, Bill Murray and Adam
Oh,
Driver.
yes, I watched that.
You did? Okay.
Yeah, it's a Jim Jarmusch movie. If you're familiar with Jim Jarmusch, he's always an independent filmmaker of some renown, I guess. At this point, maybe not as much as it used to be, but he did a movie called Dead Man with Johnny Depp that was really quite good. And he did what was it called? Ghost Dog, Way of the Samurai, with Forrest Whitaker. Another really good movie from like earlier in the 2000s. I I enjoyed The Dead Don't Die tremendously, even though I don't know that most people would.
I think that's a fair assessment. I enjoyed it mostly. Um, I mean, it's not really necessarily like a laugh out loud kind of comedy,
Hmm.
uh, but I thought Bill Murray was really entertaining in it, and it was interesting.
It was very much a um, well, it was a zombie movie, right? So
Right.
there was that aspect to it, which that's a whole genre in and of itself. But it broke the fourth wall several times on
Yes.
purpose and
Yep.
not overly kitschily. I would say at least the first time they broke the fourth wall, you're like, wait a minute, did that just happen? That was my reaction. 'Cause I'm like, did he just do that? I mean, it kind of like caught me off guard just a little bit, even though it wasn't sudden or anything. It's just like, oh, that music, and then you're like, oh my gosh, and then they carried on, and it, but I think it's one of those movies where if people, kind of get it, they're gonna love it, and then if you don't get
Mhm.
it, you're gonna think it's kind of stupid,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah. No, that's a good assessment of it, and there's some funny moments in there, like uh, the zombie attack scene at the diner, and
Mhm.
afterwards they're all gathering over there, and like every person that comes in there and takes a look, like, oh, what do you think that was? A wild animal? Two wild animals?
Too long. Yeah, it was very silly, and so I'm trying to think of all the main characters off the top of my head here. So Adam Driver, Bill Murray play like sheriff and sheriff deputy, and then who was there? Oh, what's her name? Who was the other deputy?
I can't think of her name.
I can't think of her name, but she's been in a lot of independent stuff. I can't think of it, but it has all these characters in it that all these actors in it are known actors. So like uh, Selena Gomez was in it
Yeah, yeah.
as along with some other people that weren't quite as famous as her, and she does a pretty good job of it too. And but all through the movie, it really is it's surreal, I would say.
Yeah, and uh, Adam Driver's character, like throughout the movie, he keeps saying, "Oh, this isn't going to end well." And finally, towards the end, Bill Murray asks him, "Why do you keep saying that?" And Adam
Uh,
says, "Oh, it's in the script."
yeah, I read the last page.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got to think of this lady's name because she was in Brown Bunny. I can remember all these movies she's been in my head here, but I can't think of her name now.
yeah. I know
Chloe
the.
Savini. Chloe Savini. Thank you.
Okay, and I was going to say the other main female character, Tilda Swinton.
Oh gosh, yeah. So what is your okay, Tilda Swinton, right? What what is your thoughts on Tilda Swinton as an actor?
Um, well, this was only the second movie I can think of that I've seen her in.
Oh, really? Okay.
Uh, but I mean, both the movies, I thought she played her part pretty well.
What was the other one? Do you recall?
Yeah, it was Burn After Reading.
Okay,
Have,
I remember
have
that.
you seen that?
Yeah, I've seen that one. Well, I will tell you, for at least for me, I will watch any Tilda Swinton movie because she is so different, and a lot of times it's like extremes, right? In this one, she actually was. Well, she was the Undertaker, right? Was she the new Undertaker?
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
yeah,
the Undertaker slash Alien.
the alien, right? Yeah, and she's got a very otherworldly presence. But she's been in a lot of movies that are weird and so forth. But every time she's in a movie, the performance is really interesting. The only one I can think of where she wasn't overly interesting was Doctor Strange, because
Hmm.
she was the ancient one,
Oh, that's right.
and
It wasn't that.
and
Okay.
yeah, you probably saw that one,
Yeah,
and
yeah, I saw that.
and that one not as memorable. But all these other movies, like she was in there's a movie called Snowpiercer, Have you ever seen that about the train that drives around the world and everything's in the ice age and so forth?
I
And
haven't.
she plays a character. It's just totally different than anything else that she's played, and it is just wild. She's just such a great actress and so weird. She did a movie. Um, I wish I could remember the name of it, where she's a vampire. She did a great job in that one
Oh.
because she kind of gives a vampire vibe. But anyway, anything that she's in, I will try to watch. But sometimes she does some pretty avant-garde things, so you have to be, you have to be willing to go there. I'll put it that way.
Sure, sure. Yeah, I thought she was good in The Dead Don't Die. And, I really enjoyed Burn After Reading too. I thought she did really good in that one too.
Yeah, she was. Which actually, Burn After Reading brings up another famous actor that I think about, and that was Brad Pitt. He was in Burn After Reading, right?
Yeah.
And I think he did an excellent job in that. But here's here's my thought about Brad Pitt, which is, and I'll see what your take is on this. I think Brad Pitt is an excellent character actor because Burn After Reading, he's a character actor. But they always put him as the leading man because he's a good looking guy. But he's never good. I mean, he's never as good as the leading man as he is in the character part. Like, have you seen Snatch, where he's kind of the bare knuckles boxer guy, and you can't understand what he's saying?
No, I haven't.
It's great. He's great, but it's not a big part. It's a small part, right? And then Burn After Reading, he's kind of the numbskull jock kind of guy. And but every time he's in movies like that, I mean, he is the best. And then you get him in, I mean, just like Ocean's 11 or whatever. He's fine. He's not great. And what's your
Maybe.
thought?
Um, I mean, now that you bring it up, I can kind of I see where you're coming from. Um, how did you feel about his role in Fight Club?
But he wasn't the main character. That's why it was
Okay,
good.
okay, that's true.
Um,
Yeah.
because he was the alter ego uh, to the main character, and that's why I think he did so well in it. If he was the main character, I think it wouldn't have been as good. He was in this movie
Okay.
Wolves. Have you seen it on Apple TV with George Clooney?
No.
Well, he's not terrible in that, and because it's a George Clooney movie.
Okay.
You know what I mean? George Clooney's really
Yeah,
the main guy.
yeah. I mean, I'll say that I enjoyed World War Z.
Yeah, but I mean, it wasn't. Think about those
He
other
was
performances, how good he
he,
was, and then you look at
he
World
was the
War
main
Z. He's
guy in
like,
there, right?
yeah, you're like, he was supposed to be some dad or something. I don't know. That was what I was like. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'll just say, I mean, he's not my favorite actor, but I mean, he's he's fine.
Yeah, well, but that's because he's doing the wrong parts. He's got to come into these character parts, and he's a great actor as long as they give him something to do other than be the hero or whatever. He really needs to be the villain, and he will be soon because he's getting old, right? So have you ever noticed that after people play the hero for a while, then they play the villain? Like Hugh Grant in Heretic, this one I was just telling you about, he's the villain, and he is fantastic
Hmm.
because he played, the sweet guy who was all nervous, and he's out of that now. He's always the villain, right? He was the villain in Paddington Bear or something. I think I didn't even watch that one, but that was but he's primed to be the villain. So Brad Pitt, it, if Brad, if you're listening, you want to take career advice from a couple of guys talking about movies here, be the villain. It'll be the best thing ever for you, and you'll be great at it.
It's funny that you mentioned Hugh Grant as a villain because as soon as you mentioned that, the movie that immediately came to mind was that new Dungeons and Dragons movie that came out a couple of years ago, where he's a villain in that
Oh,
one too. That one was pretty good.
Oh yeah, see, and now he's got a whole career of being a villain.
Yeah.
It's great. It's great that way. So if you okay, so like if you had to name your favorite, we'll get back to horror movies now. So I went off on a bunch of tangents there, but
Yeah, that's okay.
well, horror movies. So what would you say if I like top five horror movies? Don't have to be your number one, but in the top five, what would you say?
Uh, Top five horror movies. I would
Mhm.
say John Carpenter's version of The Thing.
Oh my gosh. Okay,
That's
it's up
that's
there.
that's yeah, that's a great one. It's a very close to flawless movie, I think.
Yeah, I would
Um,
totally agree with you there.
okay.
Totally. I just recently rewatched it a few months ago. I did watch the latest one, the which is kind of a prequel to that one.
Mhm.
It's called The Thing, I think, as well. But yeah, no, that version with Kurt Russell is you're right. It's just about flawless, isn't it? It everything moves. The whole movie moves, and you're with everybody every step of the way.
Yeah, it's very well done. That feeling of, that kind of creeping dread and the paranoia that's going around among everyone there. Uh,
Hmm.
yeah, very well executed. So I'd list that as my favorite.
Now the funny thing is we've talked previously on your show, and we're like, I don't like anything too gory, but that thing is gory. That is a gory movie.
It has its moments. It's that's probably at my limit for what I enjoy as far as gore.
Hmm.
Uh, I usually don't go too much farther than that.
Yeah, a head that separates from the body and walks around like a spider is pretty gruesome.
Yeah. Or they're trying to give CPR to that guy.
Right. The chest opens up. Yeah. Oh my God.
Uh, oh.
But you're right. It is one of those good movies. So, are you a John Carpenter fan?
Yeah, he's made a lot of good movies. Halloween,
Hmm.
The Fog,
Hmm.
um, vampires. Uh,
Oh yeah, yeah. Vampires.
yeah, that one with James Woods. He's done a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, I'm a huge Carpenter fan, and I was lucky enough. My co-host for Static Radio, Miles, he got me John Carpenter's autograph a few years ago. So yeah, I got that going on, which
Very
is
cool.
good. One of the few. I'm not. My Miles is an autograph collector, and
Okay.
I'm not. And so he got me that for. So I can't remember what it was for, but he got me an autograph of Carpenter a while back because he's getting up there. He's not a young man anymore, so he probably won't be with us for too much longer, unfortunately. But
Yeah.
but yeah, I think I pretty much I watch any John Carpenter movie.
Oh
Even
yeah.
even Escape from L.A., which was not very good compared to Escape from New York. But yeah, but I think you're right. I think The Thing is probably maybe besides Halloween is probably his best movie
Oh,
because
definitely. Yeah.
because Halloween is a very tight movie. I mean, it everything moves along and it's got enough going on to keep you on the edge of your seat the whole time. Where that's what the thing with the thing. The thing does the same thing as well. Um, Keeps everything moving, keeps you really wanting to be involved in the uh, in the movie. Well, that's cool. All right. Well, now my other interest is sci-fi movies. Do you like sci-fi movies then as well?
I do. Yeah.
Because we watched kind of a pseudo. We reviewed a pseudo sci-fi movie. I would say Primevals. Would that be sci-fi? I don't know. What would you say?
Maybe like a sci fantasy.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. So in that genre, what do you have any kind of top five? Now the thing can be in both those categories, but
Right.
let's
Right.
say that that's not in the that we can't say that one again.
Right. I mean, as far as sci-fi, yeah, at the top of the list, it has to be Godzilla.
The original one, like from the 50s, or
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
The Toho's Godzilla, the Toho studio Godzilla
Yeah.
with Raymond Burr. I'm here on top of the tower, and that's my Raymond Burr impersonation. I
I
can't
usually watch
believe
the
we're
Japanese
seeing
version.
this. Oh, you like the original? Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
I don't know that I've ever actually seen that. To be honest with you,
Oh, okay. Yeah, check it out if you have a chance. I it feels like it flows better a little bit.
well, because they stuck Raymond Burr into that for the American version. Like
Yeah.
all his stuff was shot like in 2 days, and then they just kept putting him in there, and he'd be, I can't believe what's happening. There's a giant lizard walking through. Anyway, I mean,
Although I would list Invasion of Astro Monster as my favorite Godzilla movie.
oh, okay. Now I think I have seen that one. So
Okay, that
I
just a
was,
epic movie all around.
yeah, I was huge into Godzilla when I was younger, and I think I've seen almost all of the, guy in a suit Godzilla movies that were made back in that day. Like Monster Zero and what was it? The one with the Godzuki, or no, what was his name? It was Godzilla. What was his son's name?
Oh, Manila, I think it was.
It was Manila, the little one,
Yeah.
right? So yeah,
Yeah,
on
Son of
Monster
Godzilla.
Island, yeah,
Yeah.
all of that kind of stuff. So you're kind of skewed toward that, though. I think your tastes are kind of, for being a younger guy, your tastes are kind of in the past. It seems like.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of that I think comes from uh grandma babysitting me when I was younger.
Hmm.
Because in my house we didn't have cable TV for a while, but grandma did.
Hmm.
And so I was always put on like I'd find these old like sci-fi and old horror movies, and then she would always say to me, she'd go, "Danny, why do you like such gruesome programs?" And I would just laugh.
Grandma was like, "Let me put away the kitchen knives. Dan's coming over for the afternoon."
Right.
The funny thing is, I had a similar life experience. So, when growing up, we just got we didn't have cable. And this was pre-internet, and so yeah, all I had was like three stations, and but my grandmother lived in the city, and when I went there, she had cable TV, and so I would watch all the independent channels, and I would watch all those old shows, right? So that was what they played at that time was, old Godzilla movies and monster movies and all that kind of stuff. Especially if I spent the night, right? So you spend the night and you'd stay up and watch the creature feature or whatever. Did you
Right.
ever? You're probably too young, but did you ever have? You know how they? Have you seen Svengoolie on MeTV? You know who I'm talking about?
Uh, I never had that channel, but I know who you're talking about.
Oh, okay. Well, did you ever? Was there ever like one of those creature feature guys like Svengoolie that you ever caught that you can remember?
Uh,
You're
the one
probably too
that
young for that.
the one that I remember watching was Monster Vision with Joe Bob Briggs.
Joe Bob Briggs. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he would be the cable version of that, right? So prior to him, before like cable was everything, there used to be every like area, like major area. So like every big station, Chicago and so forth would have their own guy who would be Joe Bob Briggs, right? So Svengoolie was in Chicago, and he's somehow lasted through all the changes. He's on MeTV now, but everyone, I grew up with a guy named Dr. Terror, and so Dr. Terror would come on at night and on Friday nights and or Saturday nights, and he would introduce a horror movie, old one, and then he would do the little in betweens, right? So then they go to commercial, and he'd say, "Oh, and then do commercials and all that kind of stuff." The hilarious thing to me was Dr. Terror was the news director of the station. So then he would be doing the news at 6 o'clock, and then at night he'd be the Dr. Terror with makeup on and stuff.
That's
I
awesome.
think that uh, there's room now for more of that, right? With the internet, I think that there's really a room for a revival of that kind of thing. There's actually a lady, her name's Marlena Midnight, and she does the monster movies like that on, I think it's Channel 8 in Iowa, like outside Des Moines and so forth. And she's contemporary, right? But she does a monster show kind of like Elvira, and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I think but she does it online as well. And I think that nowadays, it's ripe for those things to come back. Joe Bob Briggs still does his bit. He just doesn't do it on Monster Vision anymore. He does
Yeah.
appearances and stuff.
He
But
still has on Shudder. He has At the Last Drive-In.
yeah. So I think that's all. Everybody loves that kind of stuff. That's interesting.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, I think now is a good time for people to be doing stuff like that with how the internet is everywhere now.
Mm-hmm.
Someone could have their own YouTube show or
Mm-hmm. And then and then just do the bits. I don't know what. I guess I don't know. I suppose you could. There's a lot of public domain stuff nowadays, so maybe you could still even show the movie. I don't know. That's something to look into. I think it would be fun though,
yeah.
because there was a certain, well, you would remember it from being a kid. There's kind of a certain feeling that you get when you were watching that was, it's fun, it's kind of scary, it's just on the edge of maybe I shouldn't be watching this, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep, I know what you mean.
And so, I mean, everybody, that, especially when you're younger, everybody loves that kind of aspect to it, to where it's like you're getting away with something, but you're not, I mean, there's nothing really bad about any of it. It's just, well, Friday the 13th or something, but interesting like that. So maybe something that, could have a comeback more so than maybe it did. Cause there literally was hundreds of these monster movie guys, across the country at all these different stations. So they were ripe for a revival of the monster movie people.
Mm-hmm. I think it would be a lot of fun to go back and watch some of those older horror movies, like get a friend or two and just do like a Mystery Science Theater 3000 style thing where you're just kind of riffing on the movie while you watch it.
Now, I know actually a guy, he probably wouldn't care if I admit. So his name is Mike Booty, and he's got a show called The Midnight Citizen, and he did that. He actually did like a pilot. I don't know what you'd call it. Maybe a pilot, like a local pilot for being a monster movie host. So he's probably more in line with you as far as age goes, and he's a big fan of Joe Bob Briggs. And so he did a Joe Bob Briggs-ish monster movie style, like TV show for Access at the time. So yeah, interesting.
A lot of possibilities out there.
There is. And you probably like his show too, Midnight Citizen at midnightcitizen.com, I think.
Okay, I'll check that out.
Well, I told whoever's listening.
Yeah.
I actually talked to him. I talked to him probably about 4 or 5 months ago. Did one of these. So we've been all over the place here. Let's get back to Happy Moment. This is the way my brain works, Dan. We just meander.
It happens.
So let's get back to the Happy Moment, right? So
sure.
you've got your 100 shows going, right? And you're moving forward. Is there is there things that on the horizon that you're like, I want to do this, I want to do that, kind of like you took on the challenge of doing monologue type shows? Is there any other challenges ahead for you?
Like as far as the podcast goes?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can talk about your life challenges, sure, if you
Uh,
want. I'm fine with that too.
I don't know. I mean, like I enjoy having some kind of creative outlet. Whether that be podcasting. I mean, I like to write too. Uh, I'd like to do some kind of creative thing. Uh, Whatever form that ends up being, I don't know. Maybe I'll keep doing the podcast for a while. Uh, but I mean, there's a variety of things I'd like to try, I guess.
What is your when you talk about your writing? Like, what is your what do you like to write?
Uh, Basically the same type of stuff that I read and watch, like mostly fantasy or horror related stuff. Um, I've got a few short stories I've written.
Hmm.
Yeah, that just that kind of thing.
You know, it'd be interesting to me, and this is I'm just popping in my head as we're talking here, especially with the advent of AI and all of these tools that people, you can get a hold of nowadays, right? Is it would be cool to me, like if you had a short story or something like that, and you threw it in, so you broke it into scenes, and you threw it into AI and had it make something for you based on your words, visuals,
Oh, okay. Hmm.
right? And so then,
Can you do
and you could
that?
even do well, and then you could do a narrator or something, so that it wouldn't be necessarily like having to have the actors talk, but you could have it be set to narration and 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 then have the narration run in the back, as part of the show. I think to me, going forward, that's going to be a whole art form, right? We're just at the cusp of it. And I mean, people use it for kind of stupid stuff now. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, usually they're trying to be funny or whatever. And so then they, AI celebrities and things like that to do stuff that they wouldn't normally be doing. But I can
Yeah.
see that becoming, I could see something like that being, like a manga version or, something like that where it's could be very artistic in its visual representation, but then you're the one who's contributing to, what that story is.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's an interesting possibility. I know there's a lot of people who are anti AI,
Yeah.
and I think there are a lot of people who, like as you alluded to, kind of use it for nefarious purposes. But I mean, I think there's a right way and a wrong way to go about it.
Well, to me, all these things become tools, right? So
Right.
it's not going to go away. I mean, they keep,
No.
if anything, they keep cramming it down our throats. So there's a concerted effort for AI to become something, right? But the interesting thing is, what it becomes is not up to the people making it, but to the people using it. And
Right.
so, if we use it in this way, there you go. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
um, recently, and this is going to be one of those silly ones. This is one of those stupid ones, not a creative thing like I'm telling you to do. But I've been doing. I did a few promos for Static Radio using an AI presenter. But here's the stupid part. So what I did was I took an annoying ad for there's a game called Royal Match that is on your phone, right? And it has all these ads for Royal Match. I took a Royal Match ad, I transcribed it, and I replaced Royal Match with Static Radio. And then I had a presenter read it. And so it's this annoying ad for Static Radio based on the annoying ad for Royal Match. I don't know if everybody's going to get it, but to me it was funny, and I've did a couple of those just for the sake of doing them because I had the idea. But And that's not a good use of AI. That's a silly use. But I think that if you're like a creative person like yourself and you write these things, I think it would be really interesting because you don't always have, I don't know if you're an illustrator or anything like that. I'm guessing not. Yeah, you're shaking
No.
your head no. But if you're not, then this tool gives you an illustrator really quickly, and then you can take an idea and make it into something fairly seamlessly, with little friction. You don't have to find somebody, you don't have to befriend somebody and make them do your bidding in order to get something accomplished. And so I think that is where AI, excels. And then you can, refine that if you want. At the very least, it's kind of like um, they used to, well, I think they still do them. What are they called? I'm blanking on the name of it now. But they used to do these things, the sketches for movies, and they were called animatics, I think is what it's called. And then you would basically map out your movie in little frames that it showed action, right? You'll see a version of this if you watch like any of the behind the scenes stuff for Star Wars. They did the whole speeder bikes through the forest
Oh, okay.
with Star Wars action figures in order to get an idea of how they wanted to shoot it, right? I think it is animatics, but anyway. And then there became a program called animatics that they would use. That was like a cartooning program or an animation program. And now, I mean, you can make the whole thing now without the animatic is the product. And that's what I'm thinking, going forward would be
Okay.
kind of cool. I mean, it's up to you. I'm not going to do
Right.
it. I've already got my own thing going here. But I
Yeah.
just in my whenever we talked about that, that's what I'm thinking. It would be kind of interesting to see something like that. Do you ever
Right.
write like for stage or anything like that, or just mostly
Uh, just for
for reading?
just for
For
myself mostly.
yeah, yeah.
I did have one short story that I wrote that I submitted to try and get it published, but didn't make it.
Hmm. We should
But
try just try to do more than that. I actually know several people who are published authors, but they're not famous or anything.
right, right, yeah.
Yeah.
My intention was to kind of rework the story a little bit and try submitting it other places, but I just never got around to it, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, again, that's another thing. There's
Yeah.
there's I was asking about the stage thing because there's a guy I connected with I don't know his last name. I'm gonna be embarrassing myself. Corcoran Entertainment is his show, and I've been on there a few times, and he does stage plays, and he's in up near Nova Scotia, Canada. But they do everything. They write them and then they put them on at a playhouse up there, um, and it's a whole thing. And he just keeps doing it. So I just was curious because he's a nice guy and doing what he wants, doing creative stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, and Bob, so while you were talking, something else I thought of,
Hmm.
something that I think would be fun to try, and also ties into an earlier question when you asked me about my most interesting episodes.
Hmm.
Are you familiar with the movie London After Midnight?
I don't think I've ever seen it,
Okay,
but I'm
so
familiar. I know the title.
yeah, so that was London After Midnight, starring Lon Chaney Sr.
Hmm.
That was it's a lost movie. It got destroyed in a fire in the '60s, so there is no complete version of it that exists. But they've kind of pieced together some of the footage to make as part of a movie.
Hmm.
But that movie is, as of a few years ago, is now public domain.
Hmm.
And a couple years ago, I was contacted by a couple of guys, Jack Bowman and Kenton Hall. they were working on an audio drama for London After Midnight,
Oh, wow.
and that was just a really neat episode I did, and it kind of got me thinking. You know, because after listening to the audio drama they did for that movie, I was like, man, that's kind of cool. I think that'd be fun to try sometime. Like just kind of, I mean, maybe not on a grand scale like that, but maybe just like getting a few friends together and like maybe try doing like some kind of audio drama series.
Hmm.
Uh, I, I think that'd be a lot of fun to try.
I think so too. It would be Garrison Keeler, obviously Lake Wobegon days and all that. His kind of bailiwick was to do those kind of things, but they were based on basically radio from the 30s and 40s, right? Before television really took over, they had a lot of those kind of things, and that's where all his stuff was based on. And so, yeah, I think so. And I hate to bring this up, Dan. I've actually done one of those.
Oh,
I've actually
really?
done
What was it about?
I done a couple of them. So I did well. One is just a comedy thing. It was a ridiculous thing about. It was like a spoof of Star Trek, original series Star Trek, and I didn't write it or anything. I was just a voice, and then I did some more with through Frank Nora's group. There was a guy on there who was writing radio type plays. He used to run the Vic and Sade website, which is an old radio show, and like from the 30s, I think. And anyway, he would write the script and he would send me lines, and then I would just record my lines and send them back to him, and he put it all together, and it was like a whole, um, kind of world he created for all these characters. And I just did a couple of voices for that. To me, 'cause I like the interaction and the live stuff. To me, I love to be like on a live one where everybody's together on a call or something, and you do your lines like a stage play,
Right.
and then have the sound effects and everything, and then rather than having to be edited together and so forth. But
That'd be a
but
lot
the
of
other
fun.
those two I did were all edited together pieces. They'd send me what they wanted me to do, or do a funny voice or something, and then I would record and send it back, and they'd piece it all together. I Here's a weird story about that. So I have to travel every once in a while, and I was running behind, and I was in another city, and I said I would do this. I would do these line reads and record them and send them back for this Star Trek thing. And so I was, you know, in a city somewhere. In the hotel, I didn't have anything to do, so I decided I would do all my line readings. And so I'm doing them. I had equipment with me, and so I'm recording myself in the hotel room, and I'm being loud apparently because I had to yell or something. Anyway, the front desk called my room to check on me. So I'm because I was doing like impersonations and so forth and yelling, and then my phone rings, which never happens in a hotel. I mean, unless you want a wake up call. And this was in the middle, this is like 11 o'clock at night or something. And they're like, "Is everything okay in your room tonight?" I'm like, "Yeah." And then I'm like, oh, it dawns on me. Okay, I sound crazy. Somebody must have walked by my door and heard me, and they're like, something weird's going on in room 30
Yeah.
3501. So yeah, so then I decided not to do that anymore.
That's really cool you
Well,
got to do it though.
yeah, no, well, I mean, I'll do them, but I'm just not going to record in the hotel
Right.
anymore.
Yep.
But no, I think that's fantastic. And I would obviously I've done a show for a while, and I always encourage people. I think that this is something that nowadays, in the past you would like go take a class, or there's this thing called Toastmasters to learn how to speak in front of an audience and to organize your thoughts and keep the flow going. I think this is better than any of that because it's not mandated, right? It's not homework or anything. You're talking
Right.
about things you want to talk about and you're getting this practice. And so, yeah, I think that that is the way to, plus it's so creative. It's such a creative outlet for people. And I always encourage everybody that, life's too short for working all the time. You got to do something that you really enjoy. And even if it doesn't, it's not a bestseller or any of that stuff, doesn't matter. You do it for yourself. It's just like, you got to eat, you got to drink something. So you got to do something creative.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I agree 100% with you.
So Dan, I got on the screen here for the YouTube channel, A Happy Moment Podcast, and everybody go take a look at it. Anything else you want to impart us with before we finish up?
I just wanted to mention one more thing as far as the writing goes.
Yeah.
I did have a couple of cool moments with that. And
a happy moment?
A happy moment with my writing, yeah. Yeah. I want to say it was 2019. The local writers group was having a fan fiction contest, and I entered that and won first place.
Oh, good.
So that was pretty cool. And then there was around the same time there was another contest that the library did, where you had to write a one-page story based off of a historical photo, and I was one of the stories that got chosen for that, and they displayed them around the museum. So.
Oh, that's cool. What was your photo? Was it a photo that you took, or it's a historical photo? So.
No, yeah, it was just a black and white photo of an older guy standing next to a little girl that was riding a horse.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And with the stuff that I'm interested in, I had to put my own dark twist on it. But I did a story about how the old man was like the caretaker for these horses, and the little girl was this spoiled brat, and she was mean to this horse, and her parents were rich, so she had the horse put down.
Oh,
and
no, that's horrible.
And of course, that broke the old man's heart. So he was tasked with going out and finding a new horse for the little girl.
Mm.
And of course, in the back of his mind, he has what was likely to happen to the horse, where she'd probably get upset again and have her parents, do something horrible to it. Mm-hmm. So he goes out and he finds the meanest, nastiest horse that he can, and he gets back to the little girl, and when she asks what the horse's name is, he says Karma, and that's the end of the story.
Oh my gosh. And then she got thrown from the horse. Now it's up to us to finish go to the next phase of the story.
Use your imagination.
Yeah. And she broke both her arms.
So I've had a few victories with my writing.
That, to me, that's like almost Twilight Zone-ish, right? Wouldn't you say? That's like a Twilight Zone twist kind of a thing to it there.
Yeah, like I can't not write something and not include like some kind of like darkness into it.
Oh my gosh. Well, the revelation right here at the end of the show. Now we're going to come up with your new name is going to be Dark Dan, and you're going to host a horror show.
Hey, there you go.
Everybody, it's Dark Dan. Tonight's episode is going to be about little Christina and how she mistreats animals and how it comes back to haunt her.
I like it.
Well, Dan, thanks for being here with me tonight, and everybody check out Dan's stuff, Happy Moment Podcast. You can find it all over the place, but specifically on YouTube at A Happy Moment Podcast. And we'll look forward to more good stuff from you, Dan. And we will have to work on an AI story rendering or something. There's got to be something out there for that. So,
Yeah. Bob, it's been an honor to be on the show. Thank you so much for having me.
all right. We'll see everybody next time. Dan, hold on just a second.